One, two, one, two, a one, two, a one, two. All right. So, if you joined me earlier for the live stream, uh, first of all, I really just want to say thank you. Um, that was a little sweatier and more ragged than I intended, but this is how you learn stuff, kids. You trial and error. Had some major technical issues. My computer, for one, was not charging, which was a very strange thing. And so I learned that you need, in this day and age, you either need a real computer or you need an assistant. Not that my computer's not real, but it's just been having weird battery issues. That'll happen when you edit all day long. So I normally wouldn't re-record something like this, but seeing as how by the time this will air, it will be less than, probably around 24 hours left in the Super Ego Kickstarter, which, as you all know, is very important to me. And, I think it goes without saying that I'm super grateful for everyone that's paid any attention to me as I've gone full Stan Lee mode over the last couple weeks. Promotion, advertising, that kind of stuff is stuff that I'm ashamed to say kind of comes natural to me sometimes. But, we live in a day and age where there's a lot of talking and a lot of talking heads. And I want to be selective about where and when I do that. But that said, doing this live stream the last time made me so excited and I had such a good time that I thought tonight was going to go smoothly. But as they say, like, you make a plan and God laughs. But here we are. We're going to do a little redo, and I think I've got a way to stream through this a little faster. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to take us through a quick preview of the book that I'm trying so hard to pimp, which is, as I said, available right now on Kickstarter in the link in the bio. This is Super Ego. It's 176 pages of satire, superheroes, and slice of life, all kind of put in a blender and mixed together. I wrote, drew, designed, colored, did everything except squeeze the ink out of the squid to make this comic. It's all manner of tones, but mostly kind of centering around some thematic elements and kind of a base core belief that life is pretty absurd, even at its best and most harrowing. There's stories about basketball. There's stories about my family. There's stories about this Jack Kirby-ish kind of Sasquatch story. As you'll see, there's a character named Dr. Dam that I've created, which is a mix of Kirby and Mignola and Dan Clowes, and a lot of strange brew went into that comic. Life experience, 20 years of working in comics. So that is that's what I'm asking you to put your hard-earned money down for. But what you will get with it is maybe just as exciting. Here in the last 24 hours of the campaign or so, what I really wanted to stress to everyone is that that's not good. What I really want to stress to everybody is that these rewards and this whole push for stretch goals and stuff is chiefly because I want to deliver to you the best product possible. If this was just about making comics, I could have just kept these on the internet. But these stretch goals are important because as we unlock things, I get to add cooler things to the physical package that I send to people. I keep moving the cursor around on the screen as if I'm going to show you guys things, and it's it's just I'm as a bald man, I spent the first 20 years of my life kind of putting shampoo on my head, or first 20 years of my bald life putting shampoo on my head and soap on my body, and that's kind of giving me flashbacks. Because I know you can't see this, and it has no effect. So let me run you through some of these rewards really quickly. We've already unlocked this $36,000 goal, which means that 1 in every 50 copies will have an art drop in it. That is going to be something akin, or at least like, of the same level as this little Dr. Dam drawing you see here. It won't quite be a commission or a dealer's choice piece, but it'll be a little bit more than a remark. At $38,000, we unlock Cicada in print. The digital version will already be free to everyone that backs the book. But if we get to $38,000, everyone who's bought a hardcover copy will get a free print copy of Cicada, which is a 60-page sketchbook that compiles a lot of the like push-ups and stuff I do. It's a lot of life drawing. It's a lot of like observational work. It spans about 20 years. I kind of culled it down to make sure that this book would be almost as interesting as the main book, at least to me. It pairs really well with it. At $40,000, I'm going to do kind of a magic ticket Willy Wonka thing where 1 in every 100 copies will get a free commission. Probably just slide it right there in the pages. At $44,000, I'm going to do some major book upgrades. I will probably do maybe a sketchbook section, some things like spot gloss cover, maybe a magic spell in the back that if you read backwards, you could gain the power of Gymkata. Don't say it, I'll look out for you. So yeah, as I said, these goals are pretty important to what we have cooking in the larger picture. There's all these add-ons left, these prints, which will have QR codes that will link to the individual stories. There's sticker packs. There's a dealer's choice art tier, which I think is rather self-explanatory. Most of the first tier is gone. There's a bunch of pieces left in the second tier. These are, I think, fairly affordable. If you're not willing to, or you're not able to shill out something for the commissions, I try to keep all this art stuff a little lower than normal, just to pump some blood into this thing and to give people who are supporting it a chance to own something unique. And yes, this wild card spot is more than likely going to be, like when you go to a restaurant and you order whatever the chef wants to make. Surprise me. So, hopefully you get lobster and not like oatmeal. There's a few commissions left in the commission tier. There's the super duper ego, which includes everything and has free shipping up to $100. This is pretty pricey, but I think it's the best deal. And then if you are looking to buy Christmas presents or, stock your shelves or whatever the case may be, there's a bundle that I've added that basically get like 3.5 copies for the price, or 5 copies for the price of 3.5. So that out of the way, tonight I thought I wanted to do kind of a Doctor Doom themed, episode. Obviously, Doctor Doom is a favorite of mine. as I kind of vacillate about how I feel about superheroes given on the day. The Kirby characters are the ones that kind of stick with me, and that has a lot to do with how I was introduced to him very early on as a kid. And so this Kirby piece was, anytime I get to draw Kirby characters, it's a lot of fun, especially Dr. Doom. And this piece in particular, I think, began life as I think it was a Free Comic Book Day sketch that I kind of doodled out in Sharpie, and then I refined it for a cover I did for Marvel. He just kind of appeared in a little corner in the similar pose in an alt cover I did for a variant cover I did for Marvel Holiday Special, I believe. I just was never fully satisfied with it. So when I started doing these draw videos, which if you search through the channel, you'll find a bunch of them. And I'll probably pause this in a second and show you the one I did for Dr. Doom, because I think it'll help with the discussion or the basis of who I think Doom is. Created by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, the widely accepted origin for Dr. Doom lies in his rivalry and perceived humiliation at the hands of Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. Shamed into exile, Doom turns from science and seeks to master the secrets of the occult. Joining a society of arcane monks, he forges armor and vows to erase Victor, forever replacing him with the fearsome iron visage of Doom. But in these early stories, Kirby and Lee smartly build up Doom's injuries, and perhaps more importantly, his reaction to them, by never actually revealing them. As a result of this ambiguity, the degree to which Doom's injuries serve as motivation has been widely interpreted. Early on, Doom seems to even revel in weaponizing his ghastly appearance. But in 1983, long removed from Lee's dialogue and influence, Kirby clearly stated that the only thing Von Doom is a prisoner to is his monstrous vanity.
Strong is gone over here, but on the whole, he's a fairly good-looking guy. And perfectionists can't stand less, so it drove him mad.
This revelation roundhouse kicked Marvel's continuity into oncoming traffic. So in 1985, Fantastic Four writer-artist John Byrne suggested that Doom's haste to leave his old life behind led to the villain donning his iron mask before it cooled. This, of course, melted Doom's head like a crayon and opened the door to further debate. Was this course correction a necessary modern update, or a self-conscious attempt to jump on a deconstructionist trend? Perhaps reality is in the gleaming, megalomaniacal eye of the beholder. So, as you can see, it is not lost on me that tonight, with all these technical problems, the basis of the video was about a perfectionist driven to evil insanity by his own inability to let go of the little things. There's a little bit of doom in all of us, especially me, I guess. So yeah, after I think a lot of that information may be vital for some of the things I want to talk about with Doom as we mosey on down the line here. Watching these over earlier, I noticed there was kind of almost a meditative ASMR quality to watching me draw, I guess. So I'm not going to try and fill all of this time with blabber, but I kind of want to try and move through some of the key points and some ideas I wanted to discuss. I pulled out, in preparation for this, I pulled out a few comics that I thought I would talk about, like story stuff or conceptual stuff. And instead, I just kind of want to talk about some of the drawing in them and some of the ways these people handle making such an abstract, strange character, like feel solid and rooted and like something imposing, and just frankly pretty fucking cool. As you saw in that video, there is a lot of debate about what Doctor Doom looks under the mask. That's a very like Comics 101 sort of, nerd fodder kind of argument. I only kind of find it interesting because as you look back at the roots of these characters, a lot of times these things that have kind of been honed into something a little more iconic or a little more lasting, it's very easy to look back at them and ascribe like all this intention and all this purpose. And I think, especially with these early Marvel characters, the lesson there is that these things reiterated like time and time again, like whether that was whether that was due to I think it was mostly due to the publishing schedule. I think there wasn't a lot of built-in lead-in time with the stuff back then. It was treated fairly disposably, and so as a result, they would cycle through a lot of ideas. So even if the intention was one thing, sometimes they'd play around because you didn't collect comics back then. They didn't usually get treated as collections. So a lot of like what was remembered may not even have been available. The evidence of what you did an issue ago may not, or a couple issues ago, may not even be available to you as the creator. Today, if you work on a comic, you can usually find a copy of it to reference yourself or to make sure you didn't make a bad mistake. I mean, I've made quite a few myself over the past. So I can't even imagine what it would have been like in 1964 or whatever. So yeah, I mean, as I showed in that video, Kirby's always been pretty adamant that Doom is a perfectionist who just has kind of a small scar on his face. That he's a rather handsome man who's made ugly by this like hole in his heart, or this like OCD obsession with perfection. I, for one, like think that's a pretty great, simple motivation, especially like if you do a proper job of expounding on his backstory. I think sometimes something so simple can be really, effective and heartbreaking and relatable. We all kind of, sometimes it's the small wound that picks at you. But for what it's worth, I think Kirby was not the greatest at explaining or like pitching his own ideas. He just kind of had this matter of fact, kind of plain grandpa speak that he would take really big ideas and boil them down into things that sometimes sounded a little silly. So, when in doing some research for this, he would always refer to Doom. He would always say like the Doom's main beef with humanity or with other people was that he had the scar and they didn't. And he says that in such a simple, matter-of-fact way that it tends to, I think, sometimes like undersell the point. I think it's, you could extrapolate that as far as you want. I think, Breaking Bad uses a very similar idea for Heisenberg, for Walter White. This idea of this man who came very close to perfection, who saw other people like pass him by as a result of just the tiniest inconsistencies and then becomes obsessed with, the purity of things or the just having the stage at which that he can reach his full potential, no matter who gets in his way or what it destroys in his life. I think that if you look at Doom through the lens of Heisenberg, he becomes a very sophisticated character, especially for a guy in medieval armor, evil knight armor. As for, I know somebody's going to ask this question, so I'm just going to try and cut it off at the pass a little bit, which is tools. In the live chat earlier, somebody, I think, maybe even jokingly asked me if I'd used any new pens lately. And the answer is yes. Most of my work for comics lately is done on the iPad, at least on a preliminary kind of editing planning stage. A lot of it is done to final there, but the thing I like about working digitally is mostly the ability to move through story, to edit my thoughts very quickly and not focus on so much the drawing until I have to. I tend to tell people I don't like drawing, I don't like finishing, but I don't know if that's actually true. I do find it somewhat tedious, but the way you draw a thing it can be story, and too often maybe that is the case in my own work. But back to tools. This is largely, you notice I just kind of try to keep it to as few tools as possible. Sometimes when you got to fill a large black or you got to get really tight in on a detail, I do have to switch pens. But this is like a Uniball pen that I think I picked up from like Kinokuniya or somewhere in New York City, like a Japanese bookstore. And just kind of liked how quickly I could move with it. It's got it's pretty juicy and fat a lot of times, but it does have a little snappy. If you want to, if you need it, you can move pretty quickly and get a thin line or a little snap at the edge. But I just kind of have some kind of weird mutant ability to typically whatever I pick up is not going to look that and use is not going to look that much different to other people, I think. But to me, it would drive me mad, it's my doom scar. Sometimes I'll lay a line 15 times before I feel like I got it right. Maybe that's all artists. So yeah, but yeah, you could give me a burnt stick and it's probably gonna, to most people, look the same as if I ink with the finest, sable hair brush available. As for the methodology behind why you see this sort of gray rather than blue, that's just something I kind of picked up on recently. I've seen a few people do this, and it always really, when I see my own original art, it always kind of bothered me. Again, just flying the ointment, crazy perfectionist stuff. I'm really pretty sloppy and pretty loose and pretty seat in my pants, but just some specific things. I feel like if I was giving art to somebody else, it just looks a little better. It looks a little bit more like pencil, or it blends with the ink a little bit more to use a gray undertone. But I'll be honest, I don't really know what people want out of original art. I know what I give them, but I don't know what they want. Um, as I said, I generally try to keep the stuff, somewhat affordable, but I do think the artists out there that charge an arm and a leg deserve every bit of what they get for it. Um, I only lament sometimes that it's such a big part of the business. I wish that telling stories and drawing for the purpose of that was a lot. I wish that paid more. I wish that it paid more in terms of attention and actual green cash on the barrelhead money. So let's see. I'm gonna let this video run its course, and then I will maybe get into some of this comics art that I've put together. When I say this video, I've got it broken into 2 or 3 sections. So I think this one gets down pretty close to finishing most of his body and leaves his face for the grand finale there. So obviously, you can't show Doctor Doom Doctor Doom comics without at least like 1 or 2 obligatory looks at some Kirby stuff. And this one, in a very quick sort of Google search, this one popped out to me. I don't really have much to say about it other than like I really very often don't like seeing him inked for whatever reason. I think his pencils are so powerful that a lot of times even people who do a great job kind of minimize him in a way. I don't think he wanted to be inked. From everything I've read, if he had his druthers, he would have just gone straight from pencil. I think he even tried to with some of the later work, but one of Kirby's fatal flaws is that I guess fatal flaws, but one of the things that I kind of vehemently disagree with Kirby about and have had the privilege and fortune to be able to disagree with him about is that he kind of, for lack of a better term, would hide behind the fact that it was a job. I think either couldn't or wouldn't or either couldn't or wouldn't stand up for himself or see what his actual worth was to the work that he, to the comics companies that he worked for. There's people who have and will do far better scholarship on this than me at 3 a.m. just rambling into a microphone by myself. But if you check out some of the videos that I have posted here as essays, I've done a lot of discussion about that. I got pretty deeply into Jack Kirby during the pandemic. Pretty deep into his biography and biography as told by other people, compiled by various sources. I really do. I mean, I know I just sound like the most basic bitch in the world, but I just don't think there's any possible way to sum up what he meant to comics. Um, I thought this image was just kind of funny because, again, it's just the inconsistency of like what Doom thought of his own face. And this, he's bragging about like being able to look in the mirror at himself. I think this is from like Fantastic Four 85, maybe. Out of context, I just thought it was kind of funny. This is just a random page that I thought was funny because kind of the premise of Doom's in Doom's origin is that like I think I included the wrong page, but he's fighting a war against the people who've occupied Latveria, uh, and then it's revealed that at one point they catch him and he's a robot. He's an early prototype of one of these Doom bots that looks like Victor. And I just thought, like, is this concurrent, like, to him being in like intramurals at the same college as as Reed Richards? You know, he's at a keg party while his robot doppelganger is fighting a war in Latveria. I just I do not like the I don't know that it's the fault of the color, the colorist, so to speak, but all the color in these reprints is just way too clean. Um, it's like watching a film where they've removed the chemical swirl in the movie. You need the texture of the paper and the yellowing of the paper and the sort of like off black of the ink to make it feel right. But that's it. I've always liked this drawing. The thing I wanted to talk more about was, let me see if I can move this video a little better to a little better spot. There we go. The art that I wanted to talk a little bit more about, which kind of caught my eye today, and this was not really an intentional thing, it's just something I kind of stumbled upon, which was I was just sort of trying to think of cool looking Doctor Doom comics. And of course, the one that I would go to would be this Doctor Strange, Doctor Doom story that I think was by Bill Mantlo, Mike Mignola, and what is a revelation to me is inks by Mark Badger. This is, I think, right before Mike Mignola did Cosmic Odyssey, which is I've spoken about several times as being a very influential comic to me as a kid. So I remember seeing ads for this comic, but I missed out on most of it. And two major thoughts I had looking at it in terms of like stylistic influence were, one, there's a lot of Steve Ditko in this book. Obviously that's Doctor Strange, but I think the Ditko that I'm responding to and the design sense that Mignola's putting down here is stuff that carried over into Cosmic Odyssey in a way that I was not cognizant of as a child. And honestly not even aware of until just now. So if today was a hot, sweaty, ragged ass mess, maybe it was for a reason, you know? Maybe I endured all that so that I could learn a thing or two. I mean, obviously, you know, you have Doctor Strange here. I don't know that this is the best page example of it. But just kind of the simplification of the forms and stuff with the energy bursts and stuff. Mignola's such a good designer that it's interesting to see him take on a lot of those Ditko shapes and make them his own. I keep using the cursor again. I know you guys can't see it. Those Doom hands in the second panel, that's a level of like an anatomical reverence that I'm not used to with Mike Mignola. This page in particular was kind of a revelation because there's so much like interesting mark making within these shapes. I really prefer, like I'm one of those guys that likes to really super boil down Mike Mignola. But in these pages, there's like a lot of weird life in these shadows. Like if you take that top panel, there's a lot of like interplay, and maybe I'll do a zoom in on this when this video stops. Let's see, I'll just pause it and see if I can pull it up. But yeah, there's a lot of mark making in those shadows that I am not accustomed to seeing on Mike Mignola and never thought would really work. And again, this is where I say Mark Badger is a revelation to me in this way. I knew him as an inker. I think working with like Rick Leonardi on some stuff. I found some issues of Excalibur he did as I was looking through this stuff. Let's see. Get you a good look at this finished Doctor Doom, and then I'll pull up a closer look at. So this is the finished Doctor Doom piece, and this one was, spoken for in the dealer's choice stuff. Pretty happy with it. I'm very glad it's found a nice home. If you want to have a piece like this, there's not this one, but there's lots of cool pieces left in the dealer's choice tier. Also, before I forget, if you could do me a big favor, hit like, maybe hit the bell icon so when I do more of these, this stuff doesn't get lost. Let me see if I can pull up what I was talking about with Dr. Doom. Doom comic art. Here we go. So yeah, I think this is this should be a little closer, a little easier for people to see, maybe. This page in particular is like a sort of like boring, compared to the rest of the book as this is, and not to be like one of these people that's just obsessed with mark making, because that's really not my MO. There's two things happening in this. There's a bunch of shadows that have not quite solid blacks, which if there's an interplay there that kind of like mimics something like drapery or cloth, or it gives it a speed, but at the same time gives it kind of a flowiness. And then two, how Mignola handles the simplicity with which Mignola handles Doctor Strange's cape throughout the story is really bold, really, really, really like simple and almost elegant. It's just a confidence, it's like a balls that like a lot of people wouldn't dare put on display. I thought these Sentinel dude heads were really dope. You could see some proto sort of like machine tech, Mignola in those. Again, more like just interesting shapes, kind of a mix, kind of, somewhere proto Cosmic Odyssey. It's Kirby, less Kirby, a little more Ditko. And then this stuff, just like Mephisto. I mean, this is where you can see he's at home. But even so, this is going to get pretty abstract. I mean, as you can see in this last panel here, that's very, very Mike Mignola. And again, you watch him grow into, I mean, this second panel is just wild, and wilder still on the next page. But again, I think this is Mignola working on a deadline, I'm pretty sure. And so one of the things I really wanted to talk about, rather than the praise he's always afforded or is always due, is I forgot to load it, but like, just do yourself a favor and Google search Mark Badger Excalibur. He did a couple fill-in issues of Excalibur that I think have a really weird energy. They're almost somewhere between like a Tony Salmons and a Mike Mignola. A little rawer and not quite so story driven. But there's some pretty cool energy in those pages. And then just for fun, I didn't know Wally Wood did a Doctor Doom. Or maybe I did and I just kind of lost it. But I always think it's funny. Doctor Doom, like Wally Wood's like such a like master of pretty much every form, except like his superheroes are always just a little tied down. And I really love this page, but I think in a 1960s sort of like put this next to Jack Kirby or put this next to Steve Ditko, whoever, and for as elevated as the craft of this is, it does look a little staid compared to the other stuff. I love it, but I can't help but think of Mad Magazine. And again, this is another story where they can't figure out what the fuck Doctor Doom's face looks like. So yeah, just to wrap, just start heading towards wrapping this up, I wanted to show, since it's a Doom theme special, I figured I would throw in a little Robert Downey Jr. And I didn't have anything that was RDJ proper other than this Kirk Lazarus Tropic Thunder sort of cartoon that I did, which I think is very funny and holds up well. I apologize if it's a little insensitive to some people, but I think the joke is pretty clear that it's about actors and in particular white folks who have an overinflated sense of self. It's more making fun of celebrity culture, I think, and the quest to get awards that drives art. Anyway, I think this shit's fucking hilarious. And he in particular is hilarious in it. I love how committed he was to that. I saw a thing the other day that was Danny McBride saying that while he was on the set, he had an ear microphone in, and he was often up on this like big scaffolding, and he got the opportunity to like watch from afar as like Ben Stiller directed a scene with no arms, and Robert Downey Jr. walked around muttering to himself in character, and I just thought like, that is the perfect fucking person to have witnessed all that. So yeah, again, this is a drawn in Procreate, and this is I had no real intention of ever putting this to paper initially, but as I got into this campaign, I kind of got the bug for working on paper again the last month or so, and I decided, for lack of a better word, for posterity's sake, it would be kind of nice to have some of this stuff on paper floating around out there in the event that there's some kind of crazy fucking Blade Runner blackout or whatever. Obviously, I'm looking at a photo, or I'm incorporating like a photo to some degree, like when I do these things. But as I was trying to say on the feed earlier, very often you will run into the fact that like you could be almost dead accurate to a photo and it just does not look like the person. The way people, I'm not 100% sure why that is. I think it has something to do with the way we see, both biologically and in terms of the psychology that makes up seeing. I think human beings like don't tend to, let's jump the gun on me here. I think we don't observe or see as much as we think. We don't take in as much as we think of other people. The example I always use is that if you find someone, if you think someone has pretty eyes, that tends to be the focal point of what you look at. If you find something about them unattractive and you become a little bit hyper focused on it, it's hard to see the forest for the trees, so to speak. So I find it a lot more. So oftentimes, even though I'll do like the legwork and try to be fairly accurate to photographs or film reference of a person, since obviously I'm not hanging out with RDJ. The emotional impression they leave on me is usually a lot stronger and more helpful to some degree. Like once I figure out, because I don't really, I'm sure I have more of a methodology than I'm even aware of, but I'm not one of these people who always begins with the eyes, or always begins with the nose. I try to really think about what stands out about them almost as a character first, and then work my way backwards from that. But again, that's mostly when you're dealing with something like this where the person is not, I think it's a little more laborious when the person is not someone you know, or they're not in front of you, and or in this instance, you're trying to capture a performance that they've already made, more so than you are trying to capture the likeness to the actual person. I'm drawing Lincoln Osiris here as much as I'm drawing Robert Downey Jr. And I'm sure were this to be, Robert Downey Jr. from Oppenheimer, or Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, or whatever you want to be, fucking Iron Man, like he would be it would be a very different challenge. Somebody said earlier that I always wear a different hat in these feeds. You're getting a lot of my hat in this one. My hat was knocking the camera in and out of focus. So yeah, I may speed through this a little bit here. I don't want this to go much longer than an hour, and I think I've hit a lot of the major points. But I'd just like to stress one more time that tomorrow is the last, begins the last 24 hours. Tomorrow being Wednesday of this Kickstarter campaign. I've I got a lot of, it's been a lot. I don't want to put too much meaning, ascribe too much meaning to it, but I don't want to sell it short either. I think in 2025, the opportunity to make comics that I care about is not something that I want to take for granted or take lightly. So really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to everybody that has contributed to this in any way, whether it's just whether it's a mountain of cash or a retweet or a repost or even just a word of encouragement. It's been a rough 5 years for not just me, for most everybody, and I think having a brand new world like this where artists can call, don't get me wrong, it took a lot of years to feel confident that I could do something like this, that I knew enough about like making comics from top to bottom that I could put together a book like this and sell it to you. And there's a lot of people out there who are learning this the hard way, like cutting their teeth having to do it this way, who did not have the benefit or the privilege of having worked, for a living for 20 something years making comics, to have that to call forth. They're having to kind of they're having to do what I had to do today with this video, which is fall flat on their fucking face in front of everybody, here and there, and just pick themselves back up and keep drawing, keep making those books. So it's not lost on me that like this is a privilege to make this stuff, and I'm really, really eternally grateful to everyone that has contributed in any small way. The money is nice. I would like to fucking swim in Scrooge McDuck swimming pools and like have that little like silver spoons train that rides around my house, But the main goal here is to make something sustainable, like to build something. I plan on dipping back into, brick and mortar comics, but in 2025 and beyond, like, it's everything to be able to like move around, and to be able to publish the work that I care about. Obviously, that changes from time to time, but lately I've just been a lot more focused on making sure I even the scale. I took a look at my in terms of my work. Like I took a look at my comicsology one day over the pandemic, and as proud as I am of like Spider Gwen and Southern Bastards and all the stuff that I've worked on, it was kind of eye opening to see that like when you put it out, when you stacked it all out issue to issue, it was such a big picture of who I am, to other people, to as a creator, and I just like to leave a little bit broader picture behind. So again, thanks a lot. Hopefully we can hit some of these stretch goals and push some of this stuff a little bit further. Make a really rad book and learn how to do it even better for the second volume. I'm gonna let RDJ kind of like wind on down and maybe talk us out here. One more time with feeling. 176 pages. Satire meets superheroes meets slice of life. There's a fucking Bigfoot in this comic. There's a dude making out with a Bigfoot. If that's how you want to see it. Already unlocked the 36,000. Already unlocked a digital sketchbook for everybody. Everyone gets a digital copy of Cicada. $36,000 has been unlocked, so everyone gets the chance. One in every 50 copies will have some free art in it. $38,000 free print copy with a hardcover purchase of Cicada Sketchbook. $40,000 free commission golden ticket in one out of every 100 copies. $44,000 do book upgrades. $50,000, buy a suede bathtub. Like, let's get crazy. And I'm just going to show you the final Robert Downey Jr. piece. There is a chance I will put this one up for the for sale on the dealer's choice. I don't know. We'll see. Thanks so much to everybody for tuning in, listening to me jibber jabber for an hour. Super Ego, 24 hours left. Get out there. Please pledge, upgrade, sport, blah, blah, blah. Thanks a lot, y'all.